Hey guys, welcome to the Game Dev Discussion Podcast. This is episode 18 and we're the official podcast of the Dynasty Empire. Today we have Elyse, the animator for Warframe. Dude, it's so good to have you on.
Thank you for having me on.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Weather's great here in London, Ontario. That's Canada. Yeah, they have a London over here. It's crazy.
Wow,
It's good. It's a good day.
good to hear. And I apologise for people for being late. I have yet to master the art of organising time zones. I'm still learning that, so I apologise for a small delay.
It has been booked like 4 months in advance, so the fact that we got it this close is pretty good.
Yeah, well, to be fair, with my second one with Tim Simpson, I think I got it an hour and a half out. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Yeah.
I apologise to anyone listening. So, this is the first animator I've had on. I am a complete novice to animation, so if any of my questions feel rudimentary to the listeners, I apologise, but I'm interested in this. I'd love to hear about it. So let's start from the beginning then. Like, what was the why animation? So I can understand my thought process into what got me into environment art. What piqued your curiosity in animation?
I think like most people, I grew up around games, around film, and like I loved watching all the 2D Disney classic movies, and Toy Story was my jam, and like seeing all that stuff growing up, that was like a big part of my childhood. So I was always fascinated about that, and I didn't get to play many games as a kid because my sister was older than me, so she'd get on there and I would just watch. But I saw a lot of games. I was playing a lot of games, and I just thought I was bad at playing them. But I saw that, and then I remember when I was 11. My dad was a big film buff, so he'd always watch the behind the scenes stuff. And we watched with original Spider-Man, and he put the behind the scenes thing on, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, we did this, and this is how we made him swing, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." It was like people who worked on this, and but I was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "Cool." So they just like do this as like a hobby, and he was like, "No, this is their full-time thing. They get paid to do this." And I was like, "They get paid? What? Someone will pay you to like make Spider-Man move?" And he was like, "I guess so." And I was like, oh. And then that was like the first time that I mean, you grow up with all the stuff, but there's a moment where it clicks that this is actually a potential thing. So I always loved animation. I always thought it was a beautiful thing. Storytelling through movement and characters is it's not a bad thing, but that was the first time I actually considered it as a career path.
Did anything else ever? Was it always animation, or did you ever think, oh, maybe characters, or oh, maybe environment, or maybe something completely different? Like, or is it animation's always just sort of struck you?
It was pretty strong, and then at some point I was like researching into it when things got a bit more serious with schooling. It's like, oh, you've got to start picking GCSEs and A-levels, blah blah blah. And I think it was like GCSEs. I was like doing research, and I think someone told me that like you have to be like computer whiz, super good at coding and super good at maths, which is completely not true. And I was like, oh crap, like I'm not good at any of those things. And maybe if it's because I'm quite autistic, so I was like, if it's gonna be just put numbers in a computer all day, then maybe this isn't what I thought it was. So then I've always been quite crafty because my nan's very crafty, and I started doing more like textile stuff, crafty stuff, and I started looking more towards doing like set and prop design or costumes, and like I was always in that kind of theatre, film, game, entertainment space, but always as like a behind the scenes kind of thing. And then I did that for GCSEs. I did like textiles, and then I found out some more research, and then I was like, oh wait, that's not true. You don't have to be a maths genius to do this stuff. And then I had to make a decision, like, do I, everyone had already kind of picked a direction, and like I was like, okay, I can either stick with the way I'm going, which would be easier, or I could go into A-level art having not done GCSE, and that's the two qualifications people don't know in the UK. GCSE is like the first big choices you make, and then A-levels, like you pick four usually. And I was like, okay, so I can either go in as like an underdog into art and do this thing that I want to do, but it's going to be a lot harder, or I can go and actually maths. I took AS level maths, and I wasn't the best at maths. And I was like, okay, yeah, so I can either do that and struggle, or I can keep on this direction I'm going with the thing. And I was like, if I might as well try and see where it goes. And it was a lot of grueling years, but it was all worth it for I get to do what I love every day.
That early stage career is super tough. What was you said you so you said you had this sort of perception because someone said to you is all maths and numbers and all this sort of stuff, and you said there's a point where you realised that weren't true. What was that point?
Yeah.
How did you find that out?
I don't know. I think there was a bit where, I don't know if you guys had it, but I think there was like a thing where you do like 100 questions and it tells you like potential career options.
Yeah. I
think like animator was number one. But it said like needs coding skills or something. And it was like animator, prop designer or set designer, and then like ski instructor. That was like my top three, and I was like,
nice.
Okay. I was like, I told my dad that, and he was like, yes, dude, go be a ski instructor. I love skiing. Let's go do it. And I was like, no, wait. But I don't know. I think I was talking to someone, and they're like, oh yeah, it's heavy computers. So it was someone who didn't know what they were talking about, but they'd obviously were like, oh yeah, computers, you're gonna be like a genius, and blah blah. And I went. It was like there was like a year or two of like doubt where I was like, maybe this is what I want to do, but it's not where my talent lies. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm not in the right area. Maybe I can't do this. It's not something that's an option for me. Like, how realistic is it that I can actually do this as a career? Not very, you know. But then I kind of thought about it, and my dad's always been really encouraging, and he was like, you gotta give it a go. Like, even if you're the worst person in the class, it doesn't matter if it gets you where you need to go. And I was like, all right, well, let's give it a go.
That sounds like a very smart man.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's fun. And then I also found I also did a little bit of maths, and I found out I didn't need that at all either. So I was like, yeah, it's like completely. The funny thing is, a lot of people think it's super technical, and there are elements that are technical, but I'd say 90% of what I do is very creative. Like, you have to really think a lot.
I think what we do is I think it's hard because technicals are really like sort of broad. I think it probably doesn't seem technical to us because it's obviously just the creative thing that overrides it.
It's true.
But the software
I wouldn't consider myself. Yeah, I wouldn't consider myself a particularly technical person. Like,
that's what I mean. It's a very vague term, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess, but I guess I picture someone who is more logical, like they can do.
Yeah, I see what you mean with that. Yeah,
they can solve problems and things like that. I'm not good at that stuff. It's like
you have to be able to solve problems though. Surely, like you have a piece of software and you're like, oh, this is
to an extent.
Yeah, it's a different type of problem solving, isn't it? Because you come into a piece of software and it's like, I don't know, this rig isn't skinning properly. You still got to figure out why something's wrong. I know it's not like super technical, but you still got to work out problem solving.
No, you're 100% right. Like, and the fun thing is there's animators that sway a lot more technical, and they'll use more like constraints and things and tools and things to get where they need to go. And I'm actually, it's funny, the last studio I was in, I was considered very creative, and then this studio I'm in, I'm considered one of the most technical people, and I'm like, that's weird. I don't view myself like that, and everyone else is like, what's this button you're using? And I'm like, everyone uses this, and they're like, what? No, this is crazy. Show me. And I was like, oh yeah, you just set all this constraint system up, and they're like, what? What? And it was like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a shock. I mean, you can learn to do anything, right? Like this, if you put your mind to it, you can learn anything. I taught myself rigging, just to have a grasp on it. Like, it's not that. It's just I guess. You get animators that are all over the spectrum in terms of how they make stuff, and I just didn't realize how creative it was going to be, which was a bonus to me.
So you make an interesting little segue. I said in your previous studio you were creative, and this one you're not. So you mentioned you're in the UK, and now you're in Canada. I'm really interested in this because this is a potential option for me in the coming years. Mm-hmm. What was it like that transition? What difficulties did you face? What bits were really easy? What bits were surprising? Just talk a bit about that move, because it's a huge move. You're on the other side of the world.
So the funny thing is the end goal was kind of always to end up working in Canada. That was kind of like one of my long-term goals. It was like, I always wanted to live in a new country. I never wanted. I don't know.
So it wasn't a studio thing. It was just Canada.
Yeah, well, I
Okay.
had studios I wanted to work at, but
Mhm.
just getting to move abroad and travel was always a big deal for me. I moved to, my dad had work when I was like 11, 12 in Denmark. So we moved to Denmark for 2 years. And that was a really good experience. I learned a lot from that. And I was like, wow, this is the way to do it. Like move around the world and see all the different kinds of things. And so my plan was always to like UK and then explore around Europe and then go over America, Canada, and then probably end up in Canada. That was my like rough plan. And then we had the potential to go one way or the other. And yeah, Canada happened. But it's been a really great experience. It's good fun.
So what challenges did you face? What was the actual moving process and the recruitment process? Because obviously, like you can't just nip up the train for an hour to your interview. It's this big upheaval. What sort of
Well, the
challenges
good
did you
thing
face?
is interviews can all be done online, which mine were for actually for a lot of stuff. A lot of interviews I've done, they've all been online, and sometimes they'll get you in on site, but like if it's if it's nearby, sometimes they'll fly you out, which is nice, and you get to actually see the studio. But this one we didn't have that, so it was a bit of a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's scary. And the thing is like if you're not in industry or like some people, I didn't realize how different studios are. Like I find that it's not all about the work you do, but it's also about finding a studio that gels with your personality and your way of
The
working.
culture.
Because you got to find like a culture you mesh with, and you can ask all the questions you want in the interview, but like until you get out there, you don't know if you're going to enjoy it. And
That's why it's pretty amazing that you. That's a hell of a leap of faith to go there without an on-site interview.
that was
That's
always the goal. That's always the aim, was to move around, and if you go and you don't like it, you move again. Like
it's true. It's a very good point.
and I had this thing like one of my greatest fears was just being normal and never achieving anything or going anywhere. So the idea that I stayed in the same spot my entire life would be so and I'd already had a good experience moving countries and stuff, so I was ready to go. But I didn't get there immediately. I worked in the first company, with Total War stuff for 4 years, and I didn't think I'd be there 4 years. I was like 1 year, and I'm gonna be off seeing the world. But it was a great company, and I loved working there, and it was hard to leave. And I was talking to a friend about it, who worked there, and he was like, oh, it's cool that you're going, but I've been here a while and it's hard to leave. And I kind of think it's like being at a company, it's like being a tree, and the longer you're there somewhere, the deeper your roots grow, and the harder it is to uproot, because suddenly it's like, oh, ow, like you're with these people day and night, they're best friends, and the longer you stick around, the harder it hurts when you have to go, and even more if you got family and stuff you have to leave.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, yeah, it's gonna suck, and there's a bunch of people I miss, but it sometimes it felt like if I didn't go now, like when like
Yeah. You have to
am
sort
I
of get
gonna
past
wake
off.
up? Am I gonna wake up and be one of those people that works in the same company for 40 years? Which there is no problem with. Like that is 100% some people's dream, and it's a great dream, but it wasn't my plan. It wasn't in my stars. So.
That's what. There's a lot of respect to be able to say that though. You're at a studio you like, you got friends there, and you're
It's
comfortable
not
within it
easy.
for 4 years. So to be
Yeah,
able
it's
to have that
stressful too.
faith. Sorry.
Yeah, it's stressful too. It's
Yeah.
it's not a smooth ride, but it's all worth it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think I've got a lot of respect for that because that's a massive leap of faith, and yeah, people do get scared of that. It is terrifying to think about. It is a really scary thought.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because it's like you go get a coffee, and the first couple of weeks it's like you're being on a holiday, because you go and everyone's accent's different and the culture is very different, and everyone's like, "Ooh, would you like a coffee, eh?" or whatever it is, and you're like, "Oh, wow."
you're gonna get stick for that Canadian accent there. You're gonna get stick for that tomorrow.
Yeah, but it is, it's like you just walk outside and you're like, wow, where am I? Everything's new. There's a lot to take in, and it's cool because we've only technically been here a year, but that year stretched, right? Because you're seeing and getting so much new information every day. You're out of your normal routine that suddenly the days feel long because there's so much new stuff. Everything has changed. Everything. The people, your work, life, your surroundings. So every time you walk out your door, you're like, wow, I'm in Canada. Whoa, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, look at this food, and so it's a good fun adventure, and I would encourage anyone who's thinking about making a jump to another country to go for it. But to make sure you ask a lot of questions in your interview to try and make sure that you're moving into a because when you're in an interview, it's important they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. That's the key thing that most people don't realize, and you got to make sure that you're going to want to work there too. And they respect that, because if you're asking questions to them, you can get a better understanding of where you're each at, and if it is going to be a good fit. So it helps them feel more comfortable, and you feel more comfortable.
So it's on the flip side, so obviously it's great to hear that you're really happy over there and you're really enjoying it. I'm guessing you must have run into some negatives where you're like, okay, I kind of either didn't anticipate this, or this isn't as good. What parts of it, of the move, did you not enjoy or surprised you? Because it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and people who are looking into this need to know both sides.
Okay, so one of the things that was interesting to me was everyone kept, like, when I got out here, everyone was like, oh, you're homesick yet? You're homesick yet? You're homesick yet? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And then, a couple months go by, and then you realize, oh, I don't care that I've moved. I don't miss my old flat. I don't miss my old whatever it is. But you miss the people. Like, you make some good friends, and your family's great. And the fact that they're not around and you have to start again, is it's rough. Like, if it's like that roots thing. It's like you're fresh plant in a new patch of soil, and you're like, it was kind of nice when I could call that friend up and go for whatever. And like, it's not like that's not there, but you kind of are starting again, and that's a good and a bad thing. That it's good because like you don't have that. No one has an impression of you yet. Like, no one sees you as the intern, even that's who you were 4 years ago, or whatever it is, or you can kind of start fresh, which is nice. But it kind of hits you like, oh wow, I really miss these people. Like, these are some good people that I wish I could just grab everyone and dump them in this new place, and that would be a dream come true. But it's not all bad news. I've actually got 2 very close friends that are also moving out.
Oh, that's sick. That's great to hear.
We kind of convinced them, so I'm looking forward to that. It's you can go back if you want to, and
exactly.
It's not the end of the world, but it's the people. It's the people you miss, as anything.
That's fair. So we're gonna.
It's still worth it.
Oh, it's gonna be 100% worth it. I just want to. Again, this is trying to understand the animation side stuff a little bit more. How would you describe? Because you've got obviously a lot of experience. Someone at college, UK college, so in A levels, and they're like, I want to get to animation. Now, I know when I talk to students from an environment point of view, I'm like, there's some really simple stepping stones. Find a modeling package, pick up your modeling package, start making props, then you start texturing them, and I know the route to market.
Give them the rundown.
Yeah. So if you were talking to a student who's like, I want to get to animation, what's that route to market? What's the stepping stones?
It depends like where they're coming from. If it's like they're 7 and their mom is like, well, my son plays a lot of video games. Can he come like work for you guys? It's like, okay, so here's some things you should look at. Like, it's a lot of work. Like, you gotta really want it. Like, make sure you got the passion for it, because if you don't, you'll make more money in less time somewhere else. Like, if you're not waking up going, thank God I'm doing this job every day, then you're kind of better off doing something else. Like, that's the truth of it. Like, the amount of hours you've got to work on getting your portfolio up in any section of game dev or in the film business, it's it's a wanted job. People want that job, so you've got to be in the top bracket, and that's doable. You just got to be prepared to put some hard work in. So I think that's kind of the first thing I'd say is like, make sure this is what you want to wake up and do every day. Like, you got to be passionate about it, because otherwise when it gets hard, you're not going to want to push through, and you'll think, why am I bothering doing all this
I know
stuff?
Exactly what you mean.
Like, what's the point if I could put so much less energy in and get so much more money, right? If it was about money, or if it was about something else, I don't know. you're better off doing something else. So one is probably just make sure this is what you want to be doing. But like if you're not 100% sure, like my uni was great. Where the first year you do a bit of everything. So you do a bit of environment art, and you do a bit of animation, you do some VFX stuff, you do some game stuff, you do some film stuff. So you kind of get to try a bit of everything. So if you're like, oh, I think I like this thing, but I'm not sure if, in practice it's going to be great. It's nice to have that year to explore like what you actually really like doing. There are a lot of great online courses, and there's pros and cons to that. If someone was like, I just would not want to go to university to check it out, then you could 100% either teach yourself how to do it or go to one of the schools for a fraction of the cost. But I have my own opinions about
What about that, so like what's the first, like, so say me, someone who knows art,
where would you even start?
What's my first step? What's my first thing I'm downloading to look at?
Okay, step one, you get the books, the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. It's a book that goes through timing and spacing and walks, and it kind of really gives you your first understanding of the fact that animation is all about acting and the personality of that character. Like everyone moves a different way. Not everyone would pick that thing up that way. Like most of the job is figuring out how that would work. And then the other book that I'd recommend reading all the way through a couple times, because that book is great, is The Illusion of Life. And that's a book by two of the old 9 Disney masters, the old 2D guys, and they wrote this beautiful book which goes through explaining their process and also breaks down what we call the 12 principles of animation, which is basically the foundation of all animation. It's squash and stretch and timing, and it's all these principles you'll hear a lot in kind of wherever you go on to study, and the more you can kind of learn that, the better. And if you're feeling adventurous, I never opened like a 3D package really before getting to uni, so you don't have to, but if you've got time on your hands, if I'd have known about it, I would have done it, but I didn't. So if you got like a summer or whatever and you got some spare time, grab a student copy of Maya or Blender, or grab a free rig. If you just type in like free Blender animation rig or Maya or whatever, there's tons out there you can mess around with, and you can kind of start figuring out setting keys and stuff. I'd probably start there.
What's your preferred software?
Maya, yeah. Definitely.
Maya, okay. So it's interesting. I hear a lot of people say animators say they prefer Maya out of the packages.
Yeah, it's the go-to, or Motion Builder if you're doing mocap. Is the kind of standard. And then there's a ton of great free resources online. The Animator has like over 20 hours of stuff you can look at. Anim State has a bunch of good stuff. I think there's also Anim Dojo. There's a good heap of stuff, and whenever I'm looking into something, I just try and soak up as much as I can. I look for podcasts, I look for YouTube channels, I look for Spongella's another good one. Any book I can grab my hand on, any lectures, like if you're really into it, just like immerse yourself in it, and you'll find a bunch of good information. And I think if you're really that invested, you'll kind of seek and destroy. If you put some of that in practice, great. But if not, they'll teach you most of that when you get there. It's
It's interesting. You mentioned like when you talk about the principles of animation, and like not everyone picks up that object the same. I'm curious. I've got a question. So early on in my like development as an artist, really big things impress me. There's like a meme within like environment art, like the sci-fi corridor. When I first saw the sci-fi corridor, I'm like, oh, that's sick. Now, so I'm more into the materials, and now I'm really impressed by the simple stuff. Like, I see a good brick wall, and I'm like, wow, that brick wall is sick. Look at that detail. I'm just curious, do you get that in animation as well? Like you have that early stage where the crazy stuff impresses you, but then when do you go like, that's a perfect walk cycle? Does that happen?
I think you get a better appreciation of it, because animation is one of those weird things where it's really hard for you to see your own work clearly, and everyone else can see it clearly. When you first make something, you're like, wow, this is the best thing ever. Oh my God, he looks so realistic. And someone else will look at it and be like, oh my God, it's like a completely broken, what even is this, right? And I think when you get that, when you're able to see how that motion is made and how the body's connected and how acting works, and you get a deeper understanding of what the difficult shots are and what the not so difficult shots are. And also each person has their own skill set. Like I found, this isn't always true, but I found if you're a very expressive person, like generally, like if you're quite active and expressive, you're usually better at the kind of body mechanics kind of side. You're a bit more in touch with your physicality stuff. So usually I find the people that are more like that tend to pick up the body mechanics stuff better, like me. And then there's other people that are a bit more reserved and quiet, and they tend to be way better at that kind of subtle acting stuff. Not always, but it's kind of interesting that you get like an imprint as an animator where you're like, I see, like because you put yourself into the performance, like whatever you're doing, like it's what you think looks good. It's how you've expressed that character, right? And obviously, like you got to work hard to get out of that, because if you're in a film or in a game and you want everything to feel cohesive, you've got to all match up how you animate that one thing, right? So it's difficult, but if you're keen, you can see how
could you elaborate on the difficult shot, not so difficult shot? That's really interesting. What is that? That's really interesting. I've never heard that.
The first one that comes to mind is I watched the Frozen 2 trailer recently, and there's a bit where she kind of goes, and she kind of like prepares to run.
Yeah.
And that is just like, I mean, the whole thing's beautifully done. Like it's like a next level animation, but there's a subtlety in how like connected that feels. It's very nicely done. And I saw someone else commenting on it, and like there's this bit where she like puts her hair up or something, and it's very smooth and sleek and honest and raw, and it's very nicely done and very polished. But sometimes you think like these big movement scenes are like the really difficult ones, but sometimes it's just getting like a walk cycle. It's not an easy thing to get right. Like it really isn't. And I know that's what they start you with, but there's
nowhere to hide in them, is there?
No, it's either, well, it's not right or wrong. I mean, there's variations, but if animation is one of those things where if it's wrong, it's very obviously wrong. Like it's you can't move like that. It's wrong.
It's one of those, anyone could critique it as well. Like I could show my mother, who's not a artist person at all, but she could look at like a walk animation and be like, that don't look right
that's
to
weird.
me. It's not right. That's right. That quote right.
Yeah, it's not. It's something about it, and they won't be able to tell what. But like an experienced animator will be like, "Oh yeah, you've done this. That's what it is." I mean, but I don't know. I probably couldn't pick out like an exact shot that was like, "This is like." I mean, anything that you see in a game or a film or something has been polished to the amount that there's not going to be like a bad shot or anything. I mean, the bad shots are on the cutting room floor.
What about an easy shot though? What's an easy shot?
What's an easy shot? I don't know, man. I mean, I work in games, so I don't do too many shots. I'm more like cycles based. Anything that's kind of quick posing kind of stuff is usually my jam. Like if it's like a punch or a kick or a cast, like something that's got impact to it, it's very like pose to pose, as we call it. So it's quite like this like strong pose into another strong pose, and like you can kind of fudge it a bit.
I know what you mean.
Slow measured, it's all the flaws stand out more. So it's yeah.
So you made an interesting point. You said an experienced animator can pick out the flaws. What are some of the things in animation you pick out? So speaking to people like Jeremy and other artists, it's really interesting to hearing how they critique. So like Jeremy, for example, we mentioned something called laser lines in environments, and I'm like, holy shit, that's really interesting. That's a really cool way of thinking about it. Or TJ talked to me about tangents, and I'm like, I'm learning ways of how people critique. and
Yeah.
think about stuff. What's the animation version of that? What do you look for? What's the little things you critique on, and how does that work?
I mean, when you get to a professional level, you usually do like a meeting once a week where everyone just shows what they've done for the week, and you might get a couple comments here and there, but uh, it's usually artistic based comments like, oh, maybe it should be more like this, and it's not technical. It's not this foot placement is wrong and this pose is wrong. Like it's not that it's wrong. It's just like, oh, I think the direction should be in this direction. So it's every anime is going to have we decide like how that thing's going to move, so you take a stab at it, and if it's the animation director had a different idea of how they wanted it to move, then you try again, and that doesn't happen very often. Usually you're fairly on the money if you get a decent enough description, but what I mean is it's not usually very technical when you get to that level, because people already kind of know what they're doing. Like it's rare that you'll hear, oh, that just looks terrible or something, or like most you'll get, maybe spend some more time on this because deadlines are short, and it's like, okay, like don't worry, like spend a bit more time on that. But when you're at like a student level, or if you're getting something like properly looked at, critiqued to like a finesse level, it's going through the 12 principles and being like, is the squash and stretch right? Is the posing right? Does this feel right? Is the cadence feel different? Is everything stopping and starting at the same time? Is like a common one, especially if people do pose to pose, because if you just hit spline, a lot of problems students and beginners will have is that things will either feel too floaty or too snappy. Also, you've got to work hard to break out of like your natural rhythm. You kind of tend to want to keep the same kind of timings. And if you're doing like a whole shot, you got to find ways that like this timing isn't the same as that time, isn't the same as that spacing. You got to find ways to break it up, otherwise it all feels the same. You want to, and you got to make it feel organic. And there's ways of doing that. It's just when you're starting out, you kind of need someone to point those things out to you, which is why critique is such a big deal in animation, especially. I'm guessing you guys get the same kind of thing, but you just can't see it. Like you can spend hours looking at it, and you can give yourself critique, and that'll get you so far. But you kind of get a level that you can. It's like doing a painting. You can get there's like a skill level and your eye level. There's like the amount where you can see it's wrong but you can't fix it, and then the flip side is you know something's off, but you can't see what it is. But if you could see it, you could fix it. And those are the two states you flip between every time. And usually it takes longer for the eye to catch up. Like usually you can fix things if you can see them. So it's kind of giving critique is a really good way of training other people's eyes up to being like, this looks wrong, but I don't know why. And you go, oh yeah, the spacing's completely wrong. And they're like, oh. And then they fix it. And they're like, oh. Okay. All right. I'll remember that.
So it's interesting, especially that point you said about the timings. Like the timing's same here in a whole shot. Like the timing's the same here, then the same here. Then that makes the whole thing feel wrong. That's the sort of stuff like. It reminds me of the subconscious stuff which TJ mentioned about like he's like never put like two boxes on a row next to each other. Always have three. And it was like, or like the tangents when you frame a shot. These subconscious things are like, when a normal person looks at it and says it looks wrong, it's because of these small technical things. So what you just mentioned there with the timings and stuff starting and stopping at the same time, it makes sense. They're the small things when people say that's wrong or looks wrong. I'm guessing that's the sort of stuff it tends to be.
It's like my lecturer, I remember when he was trying to teach us about timing and about how things don't all move together. He was like, okay, let me, like he actually slammed the desk. I'm not going to do that because I'll play your ears out. But like he was like, if I took both my hands right now and I slammed them down on this desk and then you played it in slow motion, they would not land at the same time. And if you played it in slow motion, you actually look through your reference, you would find like, okay, first the hips move, then the chest moves, then the shoulders move, then the hands start coming down, then the body, then the head starts to move, and then one hand slightly comes down faster than the other hand. And it's like, if you actually watch it, it's not like, it's got this like everything's got its own rhythm to it. Like the right hand is not going to move in the same way the left hand's going to move. Even if you want it to, even if you want it to, Well, actually, it's not linear.
No, we know what I mean. Like,
Everything's
it's that this leads into this, leads into this, leads into this, leads into this, and I'm not saying like one stops and any of it starts.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
quite. That's. Damn, I'm learning animation. I'm getting animation course for free. This is
and
great.
other things like when you go in. The problem is when you kind of get lazy when you shoot. We don't get lazy, but you don't know any better. So you make a pose and you make another pose, and then the computer guesses between the pose. The computer basically just says there's point A and there's point B, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. You kind of like there's technicals, but like let's say that's 100% true. So then the problem is like we don't. Humans and animals and almost nothing moves in just a completely straight line that's not mechanical. Right? If you were to move your arm up and you wanted to keep it in a straight line, I guarantee you there's some arc and curve, and your fingers are going to be in their own curve, and your elbow and your shoulder, blah blah blah. Everything is kind of more based on curves because we have weight and muscles, and that's how that works. But in a computer, it doesn't have gravity and weight and muscles, blah blah blah. So you have to simulate how everything feels connected and how these forces are working against it, and that we're not mechanical machines. And when we do a thing, it's probably going to have these slight arcs that naturally occur, and it's combating the computer feeling to make it feel like it's a real person, even though it's not. Like, how do you make something feel heavy when you don't have weight in a seat? Like, it's all made up. If someone wants to pick a huge weight over the head in a computer, that weight doesn't actually weigh anything. You've got to make it feel in the body that it's, so that's where the acting stuff comes in. We're kind of behind the scenes actors in a way.
That's actually, I like that. That's a very nice analogy. You're behind the scenes actors.
Yeah.
Makes
and some
sense
people
as well.
do and then again that's where some other people will split off again. Like some people will be very thumbnail heavy where they'll draw the whole thing out, or they'll draw the poses out and then they'll do it and they'll nail it. And other people, they all physically act it and they'll record themselves and they get reference and then do it, and that's how they do it. And it's just depending on what kind of person you are. Some people do this straight ahead thing where you basically work. How do I explain this? You put a key and then you do the next one, you kind of almost like running animation. It kind of happens as you go through. So as you go through the timeline, you're putting more keys down. And then pose to pose is where you say, okay, I know I want it to hit this pose and this pose and then this pose, and they're going to be roughly in these timings. And then you do the in-between. So you do the breakdown between those two poses and the breakdown between those two poses. And then eventually it'll, and there's merits to both, but there's lots of little intricacies of how people work, which I find fascinating because it's there's ways you can do it that are like, okay, that makes sense, we'll teach everyone that. And then when you actually get going with it, especially as a professional, you're like, oh, I'm going to pick that up from that person, oh, I'm going to pick that up from that person, oh, I like the way that he's done that thing, and I like that button she's used, and you kind of make your own thing. So if you watch two people animate the same thing, it's not going to move the same way, it's not going to hit the same poses, it's not going to be timed the same way, it's not going to be like the process is going to be completely different. Any two animators, that's why it's cool, because you're doing your own thing.
It's very interesting. No, it makes complete sense, and it's very interesting because, like I said, I'm a complete novice to all this. I don't understand animation. I don't know how this works behind the scenes. So hearing you talk about it and describe these nuances to the animation, it's very I don't want to say eye-opening, because I always knew that animation was this whole beast which I had no understanding of, but
I get it though, because animation is kind of in its own little bubble, I think, compared to, like, I feel like a lot of people who do, like, let's say environment art, they can also do a bit of lighting, they can also do a bit of texture stuff, and they can also do a bit of oh my god, I don't know, I'm blanking on all the roles, but I feel like people will like try different stuff out, and then you say, oh, do you want to do some animation? And they kind of go, ooh.
Yeah,
no, and I feel like there's this line where people kind of go, and like I feel like in the same way, animators are like, okay, maybe we animate and we do some rigging. That's about as far as we, like most animators are diehard animators. Most of the time you don't find that they also do character art and also do environment art and also do, I feel like it's a little more divided because it's
I think they're all
It
broad
has a
terms.
different. Yeah, I mean not
'Cause-
everyone, but
no,
I
but I
feel
mean, like
like
an environment artist. Like I've said this last podcast, is whenever I speak to an environment artist now, I feel like if someone said to me, "I'm an environment artist," I'd probably say that's as good as telling me you're a 3D artist, because it's such a
yeah,
vague term. No one is an environment artist. People are, well, they are, but there's like material artists, lighting artists, and there's all these specialities. I suppose
yeah,
I look at animation
it's
sort
more
of the same.
fluid.
Yeah, but you have your
It's
own
like
sort of your own thing, because it's like animation, and I
yeah,
class within animation. So there's like character animation, there's creature animation, facial
yeah.
animation, um,
The difference
combat
for me is
rigging.
that yeah, like we study movement, and other areas study art, right? So I feel
Yes.
like if you're a concept artist, you will make a fairly good environment artist. You'll probably make a decent characterize. And there's like skills that each one has where it's not completely one to one. Like it's harder to go from a concept artist to environment artist than a character artist to environment artist. Blah 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 blah. But at the same time, your visual eye of what looks good has been trained to some extent that it's still a very artistic visual thing. Whereas when we work, we get this ugly grey box thing, right? Like our workspace looks ugly as hell most of the time, right? It doesn't look pretty until everyone else has sorted their stuff out. And we're also quite late in the pipeline. It's already been rigged, it's already been modeled and all this jazz. So what we're looking at isn't like the same kind of visual skill, I guess. So I feel like it's
Yeah.
less transferable.
No, it's not. It's
I
definitely not
guess.
as transferable to other stuff.
You can
The
still do it 100%. Like I know someone who worked as an animator and then is now working as a character artist. It's just I feel like people don't
I think character is a
trust
bit more of a leap. I
as
think
much.
character art, I can see why you would go from animation to character art.
Yeah,
I'd imagine that more than I'd imagine animated to say a procedural texture artist. That's a bit
yeah,
more of a leap to me.
yeah,
But also I think that like when you say like artists and programmers, their minds work differently. The way they view the world is different. They're different
yeah,
creatures, they're different species.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do sort of class that the same between the art disciplines. So I see 2D art, 3D art, and animation. And I know animation is 3D art, but like I class
Yeah,
someone who can do 2D animation, I think has the same kind of eye as a 3D animator. Maybe not the same technical skills and hard skills, but the way they view animations and like you were speaking about the curves and the way things flow, I'm like, they're the same sort of
yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
their minds work differently.
Yeah, I was always obsessed with movement, and I think there's something very childish that I like. That it's very playful. Like, if you think about what I do all day, I have to pretend to be a sci-fi space marine, whatever it is, with a heavy gun. And, I'm like in my head all day. I'm play acting, and then I've got to translate that into I decide how that character moves, and I've got to like think, how am I going to make this interesting and viable? And then after that, you do the technical stuff. You get a good idea in your head, and then you go, okay, what are my poses? What are my timings? What are my blah 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 to make it actually work? But it's like being in a mocap studio. You get suit on, and you're like, okay, now I'm a gorilla now. You have to. It's you got to embody what you're doing. And
How does the mocap stuff tie into what you do? So like, is
I've been in the
it?
suit a bunch.
So you actually do that? You get in a suit and you'll act out the stuff?
Okay, so it works differently in different companies. So some companies will have their own mocap studio, which is great if they do. In that, a lot of animators don't want to get in a suit. Like they're like, what? No, I don't want to run around. It's hard work being in a
Yeah.
motion capture suit. It's not easy. Like even just doing like you think, oh, hitting a map, falling over. No, you do that 100 times.
Yeah,
Oof.
yeah, it's repetition.
Your neck is like, oh man. It's hard work. So, some animators wouldn't want to do it, but they'd be like, oh, hey, would you go capture that for me? Blah, blah. And, I'd always be up for it. But, then the other thing is if you have someone who's physically fitting the role better, makes sense to use them. So, in the last company, if we had like a character we needed to get a bunch done for, I kind of find someone who's closest physically or might have some good ideas of how this one moves, and then I would do it and they would do it. So then you got two to choose from, because no one's going to act the same way either, right? So then you've got some variety. And then so I always had the option to go down the mocap studio whenever I want, just book it out and go run down there as part of my day. And then we had a motion capture cleanup team and some guys that worked very hard to give us clean data, which is, you don't just get it clean. It's some people have to work very hard to process that first, if you're lucky enough to have a team that does that. Or, sometimes, I'll just go down, we got one in the studio, sometimes I'll just go down and I'll just take my, phone to a little tripod and I'll just mess around and just try out some stuff, and it's really helpful.
I was going to ask about so you've got your animation. You do a roll animation. They clean it up. Someone cleans it up for you, or you clean it up, whichever. How much of that do you then have to do a sort of a quote post animation on? Because obviously that's real life.
That's the question, right?
So like for a texture artist, I don't like photo scans particularly. I think they're a bit what's the word? Sterile. It's the only way I can think to describe it, and I like to add a little bit to it and stylize it a little bit. That's just my take on the art. Is there something similar to that with animation? Like, okay, this is real life, but it needs that little bit more to just push it along. Is that fair to say?
This is a fun story because this is a debate a lot of animators have, and a debate I've had a lot of times. And so I'll take you back a little because it's related. But when the switch was being made from 2D to 3D animation, when the first 3D animation software, after Toy Story and that started becoming a thing, the 2D animators said, that's not real animation. That's just getting a computer to do everything for you. And the 3D animators at the time were like, what are you talking about? This is really hard. The computer is not just doing everything. This is a bad job. But, the change was like, what? Like, is this computer just going to take our jobs? It's not, like, a viable thing for us anymore. It was scary. And then, that obviously, that was, like, the next big step. And then we got motion capture. A lot of animators, the 3D ones were like, oh, my God, we're not going to have a job. So you're going to just run around in a motion capture suit and it's going to come out perfect. And nope, that's not the case either. Some animators don't like working with mocap because it does limit your creativity a bit. Like, if you get a base to work from and you can do whatever you want with that base, but in the end of the day, you can look at that and go, I need to fix it, what it is, and you'll make it better. And you always have to tweak it. You can't just throw it in game. That never works. As much as a lot of people like to pretend it does. Like, you still need to have an animator go through and fix a lot of stuff. But the nice thing about doing it by hand, quote unquote by hand key is what we call it, where you don't have any data to start with. There's no motion capture. You just start from a pose, T-pose or whatever. The nice thing about that is you can be as creative as your mind can allow. And the great thing about motion capture is we can do a lot more now than we used to if you have motion capture, because you can get through a lot of animations, a lot of data very quickly. That is good. It's a good thing. And it also, motion capture has its own look to it that it's very hard to get with 3D. Like, they each with hand key, they each have their own look to them. But motion capture is an art in itself. But what I will say is you have to be a good hand key animator to be a good motion capture animator. Like, you can't fake. Like, you can't just mocap and then be like, cool, I'm going to just shove this in game, or I'm just going to play with it and it'll look good, because it won't, because you won't know what to do with it, because
you need to add personality to it as well, don't you?
Yeah, but it's not just that. Like, real life looks real boring. Like, it looks boring. Like, even in like the really realistic things, like in, like, you think COD or something, it's still going to be the right pose, the feet can't slide, the data is going to have issues in it you've got to fix, the posing's not going to be optimal, you're probably going to want to speed up a bunch of the timings because the spacing will be even. Like, if you just put, like, motion capture data in a game, it'll look really boring because it'll look like badly done real life. And it's like, even if the actor is amazing, or whoever you've got doing it, and you can get some really great, like, bases with some stunt actors and things, like, that is a career, because it, us doing it versus a stunt actor doing it, it's a big difference, of course. But yeah, you still need to put a lot into it, and no matter what that person does, they're never going to be exactly the same body as the character or whatever you're putting on. You get close, but not exact usually, and they're doing more nowadays so that the sets and things, like in Uncharted, they built like sets so that things, if you put your hand against a wall, it was actually a wall going to be there, and all this kind of stuff, which is helpful, but you still need to emphasize stuff because otherwise it just feels like cardboard. It just doesn't work. Because like even if it's the most accurate data in the world, like 1-to-1, it's still not gonna look fun.
I completely get what you
And
mean.
you still don't, you're never gonna be able to. I was about to say you're never gonna be able to mocap a dragon, and I'm gonna preface that by saying, of course, there was Smaug, and we had Benedict Cumberbatch's face, but like that only gets you like a bit of the way there. Like it's helpful, but it's a whole production. It's it gets you there quicker.
Yeah, but it doesn't finish the job.
It doesn't finish the job, and you still need to be very skilled about how you handle the data because
I'm glad you said that because I have wondered what the perception of the mocap side of things are from the more purist animators.
Some people don't like it. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, some people are purists about it, and they won't use it. And I see it as a tool. It's like, have I got a paintbrush or a spray gun? Like, you're still going to have to be a good artist to deal with it. It's just you get different results, and one of them's quicker. It's like.
I mean, with all respect, is it just? I don't want to call it. Not
it is harder. It is harder and more skillful to do raw hanky.
No, sure it is, but it's also harder to paint like oil painting than it is to paint a Photoshop canvas.
Yes, exactly.
So is it just a case of
it's not cheating?
Yeah, but is it just a case of people not wanting to roll with the times then? And it's no, I don't want to call it. It's not arrogance. It's not arrogance. It's not the wrong word, but like they're attached to their thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the, I get it. Like it is more fun to start from scratch. Like it is. Like you get more freedom, you get more creativity, but sometimes budgets don't allow for that. And you got to be realistic that if you're pressed for time and the option is using mocap and getting all that extra polish time and it looks better, like why wouldn't you use that? Like
exactly.
It's a great tool, and sometimes we would even use mocap just as like the quick day base where we just throw something in and it's like, here you go, there's something to work with. For like designers and stuff, so they can start working out timings and what they want the character to feel like, and then we go back and we basically replace the whole thing. So we just get something in just so that people start working with it.
You have no idea how many parallels there are between this right now and the world of material art. It's actually uncanny.
Well, yeah, like we all do like blocking and stuff, and just get it in like there's the whole get it in game thing.
It's just that whole thing.
But it's like, get in game, get the block at it.
It's that real world reference thing, like I said, photogrammetry compared to like traditional material methods.
Right.
It's literally parallels the mocap to the hand keying.
Yeah.
So
it's like someone saying, "Oh, you're gonna, you barely have to do anything as an environment artist because they can just scan the forest," and it's like, do you? No, that's not how that works. Like, nothing's, you still gotta. There's always going to be a bit of hyper-realism where you've got to push it beyond what it is. Mm-hmm. No one wants to be in the pure realistic world most of the time. And even making something look 100% real is not easy either. Even if you want it to look easy, and we're so used to seeing stuff in games and film that is that edge of hyper-real, that even if we put something that was exactly realistic in, people would be like, why does that look terrible? I don't know, like real life. But it is, but...
Uncanny Valley.
Right, exactly.
So, as you know, this is a podcast of the Dynasty Empire Learning Art community. I'm a huge advocate for this sort of thing because it's the one thing I wish I had when I was younger.
Yes.
You found
exactly why I did the same thing.
Exactly. So the animates. I mean, I'm gonna sing the heels of this Discord because I love the fact it's there. And for a while, I said that. Oh, I don't know any learning resource. I don't see learning resource online for animation and VFX. And then I found out about this Discord, and I'm like, okay, even though I'm not interested in animation, with respect, I'm like, I could tell my animator friends, like, look, there's a version of the Dynasty, but for animators, you're gonna love it. So what is that? So like you said, you started, for some reason. Why? What was the drive? What do you want to do with it? What's the plans?
Yeah. So I'm the kind of person that doesn't really sit around.
Yeah.
So we were getting our computers shipped over from England. So I had like a couple weeks to think while I was sitting in Canada, and I was like, what am I going to do with my time? And so I started thinking, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to have a regular show where we talk about animation, because we have all these great chats and then they never like go anywhere and they never help anyone, but it's fun to talk about. Like I was saying to you, you know, I could talk about animation till the cows come home. Like I could go talk about animation for hours and hours, and you know, most of my friends can as well. There's all these cool people I talk to, and it never gets, you know, anywhere. And you know, I remember being a student and being like, just like emptied the bucket of resources, like anything I could get on my hands on that was animation related. I watched, I read, you know, I don't know if you did the same thing, but it was like, what else? Like, what if, you know, this one tutorial or this one conversation gives me that edge? And, you know, I think, you know, it did help a lot. And I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to just, you know, what I would have loved is just to see animators talking. And there are communities that do stuff like that. Spongella is a great one. AnimState is a great one. You know, but what I noticed with a lot of these is they didn't regularly produce content, and it was usually edited. It was usually like 5 tips for doing this thing, da-da! And it's like, okay, that's fun, but like, where's like the real chat where it's like, okay, we're gonna just chat for an hour about this subject or whatever.
Talk about ideas.
Yeah, and so I kind of was like torn between doing like that or like some kind of mentorship thing. I was like, I really want to like give back, you know, and you know, they say it's like you know, throwing the ladder down or sending the elevator down. You know, it's like, well, you know, when I was a sketch student and I didn't know what I was doing, I wish someone had been like, hey, here's all these resources, hello, you know. So I was like, okay, you know, like if I am in a position to do that, which I am, then it would be cool if I could try. So I put some tweet out that was like, hey, when I get back to the animation community, if anyone wants to help me, let me know. and then loads of people like responded, and I was like, oh, okay, crap. All right. So then I came up with an idea where I was like, okay, we're gonna meet and do like a Twitch thing every Sunday where we chat about a topic about animation, and I'll do interviews and stuff. And we're doing it about a year now. It's all up online at the-animates.com, like ANIMATES with a dash.
Just a heads up, I'll link all of the resources for this place in the description, because you do need to check it out.
And then so we've got, I think there were 6, and now there's 5 of us that were trying to meet up as regularly as we could. And I thought, you know what? It's like an hour of a week. Like, that's easy. We can keep that up. So it's been quite hard. Like trying to keep it going. Honestly, it's a lot of work. But we've now got over 20 hours of content up that's free of, you know, us talking about dealing with burnout, and us talking about dealing with imposter syndrome, and us talking about we did like a 3-hour or 2-hour video where we critique people's demo reels and talk about how to have a good demo reel and all this kind of stuff, all the stuff that I wanted to see. And we've interviewed people from Blizzard, and we've interviewed people from God of War, and we have a couple of those that are just gems to listen to. But we're now not doing it every week because we're all busy professionals, and everyone was like so drained, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like, because you think it's just an hour, but A, talking for an hour is not easy, even if you love it, and B, like, these people get so little free time anyway, and then to also ask them to give up and stay in on a weekend, and like all the other admin I was doing behind the scenes, I was like, okay, like, we tried it for a year, try and do it every week, and that's a lot. So we're toning it down a little. We're not going to do one every single week, but we're still going to be putting lots of great content up. And we've got a really great Discord, which is like a byproduct. I was like, everyone was like, why isn't there a Discord? And I was like, what? And so I made one. Yeah, I made one. And then suddenly there was like all these people, and they were, you know, because people kept saying, oh, where do I go to get feedback on my work? And I was like, oh, there's like AnimState. And I kept sending people to AnimState, which is great. You should look at it if you're an animator. It is a great resource. But the problem is there's so many people in there now that it's kind of like oversaturated. And they were like, oh, I'd rather just have like a smaller community. And that's what we got. We got like a smaller but really passionate community of people that, you know, when people now ask me, I'm like, oh, well, you could do Anim State, or there's also an Animates Discord that you can get to on the website. It's like a little play button, and it's cool because, you know, people post up jobs and, you know, give each other feedback, and it's a nice, like, little tight-knit community of fun people, so it's really sweet.
That's the best bit. For me, the big value in it is the feedback and critique.
It is.
Because I know that was my big stepping stone, was when I joined the Dynasty Discord. Oh shit, people would critique my work, professionals, like industry professionals going, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. And I'm like, oh shit, that's what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
So seeing
it's super helpful.
Yeah, because I think people, like I said, it's hard to critique your own work sometimes. Because you don't, like I said, your eye and your skill and there's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But when a professional says it, it sort of hits you with the weight of reality, because you just sort of go, shit, I can't ignore the professional because they're professional. So see, that's why I think it's really good value, that Discord. I really like it. And even though I'm not an animator, I do like to read it.
I try and keep up, and I just can't. I'm like,
oh, it's impossible to keep up.
You do you. I try. But it's a great group of people. And the nice thing about little communities like that is that you can get, you recognize people more. And this is something I found out when I went to GDC, is that a couple of years back, I was talking to my friend Kaz, and who's like famous among environmental artists somehow, because she's amazing. And I was like, hey Kaz, you kind of like, everyone knows you. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, how do you like do that? And she was like, you know, you got to keep up with like your social media stuff, and, you know, go to like meets and things. And I was like, what are these words you're saying? I don't know any of this stuff. And you know, she was like, it's okay, like, you know, you just like post your work up online and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that sounds weird. And, you know, I started doing Twitter. I was like, oh, this is weird, I don't get it. And then you know, at some point you're like, oh, I know you worked on this cool thing, and oh, I've heard of you. And then suddenly you're like, wow, I'm now involved in this larger group of people that are all like these super talented professional animators, and also non-animators, but just like game dev people. And like my whole feed is just like inspirational animation stuff, and you get to know people super quick because it's actually a really tight community. And I only really follow other animators or other like game dev or like kind of relevant work people. It's like my work thing. So when I go on there, it's all relevant, and you make all these connections by accident, right? Like I didn't set out to be like, I'm gonna like get to know all these people and they're gonna get me a job. Like that's not how you approach it. Like that's, you know, that's very rarely how that stuff happens. But, you know, it's you there's other communities that you get into, and there's all these people like the guys at oh my god, what's that place called? I can't remember now, but Tim runs it. Really, look it up really quick because it's a good resource. It's like something time, animation time, something.
So I haven't seen that. I'll be honest, I haven't seen that one. It's interesting though with the socials.
Borelli. Oh, he does Anim State. Sorry, but there's another.
I heard that one. Yeah.
So he does Anim State, and he's just a gem of a person. He ran a bunch of the round table stuff at GDC as well, which is really cool. Sweet guy. And there's another one that's run by Lana Blizzard called something. I'll look it up because I got all these people. Blizzard. Oh, I think it's called Tea Time Animation.
Okay.
I think she runs it.
I want to where's my pen?
Yeah, there's some. Yeah. But what's cool about it is like you don't even. It's, you know, everyone always says like working game dev, it's like a small world, and you can get connected to a lot of people very quickly if you're.
I think you could use the socials properly. Nice. I do think it is good because I mean Twitter especially. I mean Twitter for years I didn't use because basically it was all rugby and I was useless. I was like, I don't really care for this, and I did a massive clear out. I like deleted all my rugby stuff and I only had art people. And suddenly it became really relevant because then it's like, oh, this art person liked this or this art person commented on that, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thread. Let's pull on that a little bit.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen immediately. Like I went
Oh no,
to,
not at all.
GDC, and Tim was like, "Oh, I've seen you around, and I've seen the animate stuff." Which, like, even if I hadn't done that, it would have been fine. Like, it's not about that. And he was like, "You should come join this animation thing. We're doing it at Twitch headquarters." And I was like, "Okay, sounds weird. I guess I'll turn up." I didn't do that, but I just thought it was like small little get together, like when they do like the Polycount pub type thing. So I thought it was gonna be low key, and then I got there and it was this big thing, and like all the best animators in the world were there, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Twitter is fun. Like, what? Like, I get to like rub shoulders with these people. That's it's unexpected.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah,
So
it's nice.
we've
Put yourself out there.
dude. We've been. I can't believe how quick this has gone. I think is this the longest podcast I've done so far?
I'll talk as long as you want me to. I just want to shut up.
I've got one last. I've got one last question for you,
Sure.
and I haven't warned you on this one. I never warn anyone.
Okay.
Go back to 16, 17-year-old you. Do one thing. Would you get if you could speak to you? What would you say?
This is what I ask. This is what I do. I say, what would you say to a younger version of yourself?
Yeah. It's a very interesting question. You know what? I've got some surprising answers. So I'm curious. You, what would you say?
So, mine's a bit weird because I don't think it really applies to everyone. But I think I would just say like, what did I say? Don't worry so much; it'll all turn out okay. Because the thing is, like, I spent so much time stressing and like panicking and being depressed about like not making it. Like, oh my god, like, what if I just end up working in McDonald's my entire life? And oh my god, if I don't pass this GCSE, if I don't pass this A level, I'm going to be homeless. Blah blah blah. Something like that. And I think there is a lot of pressure put on you to be good. And I used to think that was like useful. So I would feel into that. I was like, if I'm stressed out and panicking, I work better. That's something I told myself. I was like, oh yeah, if I'm like mentally freaking out, I will work better, which is a complete lie. It actually tires you out and you don't work well at all. For a long time, it took me a while before I like figured out that I didn't need to be doing any of that, and it was actually holding me back. But like, obviously, I don't know, like, if I went back and said like chill out, it's all gonna be okay, would I still be where I am today? So if I actually had the option, I probably wouldn't say anything because I don't want to mess this up and I don't want to do it again. So, but I would just. There's some people that you kind of want to shake and say like you need to be putting more effort in. There's other people that you're like, it's. I in my lectures would say I was like, oh, I'm so worried I'm just not getting a job and it's gonna be really awful. And they were like, you're one of the people that's like doing really well. So like, don't worry about it. Like, you'll be okay. Like if you keep working as hard as you're working, you will be fine. We know. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. You don't know anything. I'm gonna be homeless. But like there's some people you want to kick in the butt, and there's some people that it's like okay, like.
I'm that guy who needed a kick in the butt. I wish I could just grab me and just slap some sense into me. Lose that chip on your shoulder and park that ego.
Yeah. But I really think that you need to kind of suffer a little bit in the short term to get some long-term gain. I think that's really a legit thing. If people said, was it easy? I would say nope. No, it wasn't. But is it easy now? Yeah, because I get to wake up and do a job I love. So it's very worth it. And if you think about the amount of time in your life that you're going to be spending working, like you might as well be doing something you enjoy, and you might as well try and get there as quickly as possible. Like get the crappy exams out the way and get good scores and work hard and just get through it, because at the end of the day, one of these days you're gonna wake up and you'll be in Canada and you'll be or whatever, wherever you want to be. If you just keep working at it and you're willing to lose some sleep and you're willing to put it on the line. Like I remember when we went, I got in one of the top 2 or top 1 schools in the UK for animation. That I had, we got onto this or something. It was like, I said to myself, I've either got to get into the University of Hertfordshire or Bournemouth, and those were my top 2 that I figured were the top 2 because I asked a bunch of people that were in the industry, and I said if I don't get in to either of these 2, I'm just going to do like college, and then I'll get into the best. And then I got in, and I was like, cool, I've made it. And the lecturers were like, if you're not in, like, we're a really good school, but if you're not like in every lecture and you're not in the top 5 to 10 if you're not in the top 10% of the class, you won't get a job. And if you want to actually choose what job you get, you need to be in the top 5% of this class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck. So I took that to heart. I didn't miss a lecture. You make friends with all the smart people who actually turn up to stuff, which is a nice byproduct, because you're like, hey, I know you. You're also here all the time. That's fun. So you actually make friends with all the people who are also willing to work hard, which is I think what helped me out a lot. You kind of meet some nice people, you gotta say, okay, well, that guy is working 10 hours a day. I guess I'm working 14. Like,
I would go for that. That's great advice.
I don't know if I'm getting as much out of my hours as they are, but I know I can put more hours in, or I can read more books, or I can watch more shows while I'm doing stuff. And as long as you're trying your best, that's all anyone can ask of you. But make sure you don't want to look back and regret that you didn't put more effort in. I was like, I am not graduating. Like, I'm not leaving here not proud. Like, I'm getting that first. I'm going to be as close to the top of that class as I can. Like, I don't know. I hope that helps.
No, I
someone.
think, you know what, I really, genuinely, I think this is going to help a lot of people. It's very unique advice as well, I have to say. It's very different.
I feel like most people, they ask me something like that, and I always give them quite a hardball answer. I'm like, you got to work hard, you got to this, you got to put it on the line. And they're like, oh, and they're like, what? You don't, Elyse, why are you like scaring people? I'm like, I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just like,
no, but it is the reality of it, though.
I think that's what you got to do. Like, you got to say no to some parties, and you got to say yes to some extracurriculum stuff, and you gotta it's that 10,000 hours thing. It's like, do you want to be spending, if you want to get good at animation or environment art, do you want to be spreading that over the next 20 years of your life and working in Starbucks, and then working that 1 or 2 hours you get each night that you're already exhausted doing it, and that's harder than giving some nights up now. Like, the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. Like, it's doable, but you might as well, the time will go anyway, and you might as well look back and be proud than look back and be sorry that you didn't and put some more work in. So,
alright, I've got to say, dude, I really enjoyed this. I'm
glad.
learned more
I've had a good time.
I've learned more than I thought I would.
Good. We didn't talk too much about animation, I don't think.
Well, no, but I'm glad this is why I like doing it live, because sometimes you want tangents, and the tangents could be more insightful.
We literally have a show called Off Tangent, which is a bit of an animation joke, because you can break tangents and part of the curves. Anyway. Yeah,
we'll link that one in the description too. But dude, thank you so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Everyone who's watching is tuned in. Down below in the Twitch panels, there are links to the Spotify, the YouTube, the SoundCloud, the iTunes. And there's also a link to the Dynasty Discord. In the YouTube description, I am going to drop a link to the animates, all the places you can find them on online and Discords, because the more learning resource out there, the better. But I'm going to wrap it up, dude. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.